Kicks Ritter to the end zone, looking for Pierce. Did he hang on? Yes. Touchdown. Major back as I've been around. Here he goes again. Busts free. Jerome Ford down the sideline. Foot race. House call. Touchdown. 79 yards. Big run in the Peach Bowl. This is a big one too. And it's going to go all the way to the house on the first play from scrimmage.
Bearcat Blitz on the Believe Network. How we doing, everybody? I'm your host, Russ Heltman, coming off of a victorious road trip for the Cincinnati Bearcats football team. They take out the Kansas Jayhawks 37-34, and we will discuss all the ins and outs from that matchup on this week's show, plus the betting line for this Saturday's game against ranked Iowa State has surfaced, and the Bearcats basketball team has added to their staff. Plus, right before we started recording, we had a game time announced for the Cincinnati Bearcats matchup in the following week against UCF next Saturday. That's happening at noon. 3 straight noon matchups for the Bearcats football team as they continue through the 2025 season. And we continue our great partnership with FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook, where I'm hoping everybody took advantage of those boosts this past weekend. FanDuel been very generous with their boosts throughout college football season so far, and they have you covered with a ton of great boost options. No matter what sport you're looking for, you should be able to find a wager on FanDuel Sportsbook, where we check the line for this weekend's action against Iowa State. Number 14 Iowa State coming to town, where the Cyclones are 1.5-point underdogs to the Bearcats, who are -122 favorites on the money line, with an over-under sitting at 52.5 points. FanDuel Sportsbook, a wonderful presenting sponsor of Bearcat Blitz, and we hope you will make them your first choice for your wagering this college football season and beyond. I'm Russ Heltman. We'll bring in Neil Meyer in just a few moments after these messages on Bearcat Blitz. Neil, they proved you right and proved me wrong on Saturday. I had the Bearcats dropping a 37-34 game to the Kansas Jayhawks. I nailed the correct final score, just had the teams flip-flopped as Cincinnati gets the job done behind what I'm saying, Neil. I think it's pretty cut and dry as the best game Brendan Sorsby has played in his college career up to this point. You given the circumstance up against a top 30 team, the moment he had to meet, the lack of execution, where I asked him post-game, I commented that his offensive line performed pretty well compared to how they performed the rest of the season, pretty much on par. That was not the case. Pro Football Focus completely proved me wrong in that sense. It was a horrific day of blocking for this Bearcats offensive line, and Brendan Sorsby still overcame that to post the top grade on the entire offense, second highest grade on the team behind Antoine Peak Jr., who we'll talk about in just a moment. 85.1 overall Pro Football Focus grade from Brendan Sorsby, 388 yards passing, 67% through the air, 158.6 quarterback rate or passer rating, 2 touchdowns, 29 of 43, and then on the ground, 13 carries for 52 yards. Neil, this was the Brendan Sorsby game. This was his game. We talked about it pregame. We talked about how he had to show that the last couple games against lesser opponents was not just smoke and mirrors. There was a lot of mirrors and not a lot of smoke, Neil, and we saw a lot of mirroring of a win back to the Bearcats. What a performance by Brendan Sorsby. What a performance by his receiving core. It didn't have much action from Joe Royer here. 11 catches from 128 yards and 2 touchdowns for Cyrus Allen. He destroyed this Kansas secondary up and down the field, got 14 targets on the day. Caleb Goody had a great afternoon, 5 catches for 91 yards. Noah Jennings popped up and had a solid day as well, 3 catches for 36 yards. All 3 of those guys were among the top 5 graded Bearcats on offense in this football game. And Neil, they overcame a monstrous game from Jaden Daniels, 445 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 55 yards rushing. But that big fumble caused by Antoine Peak Jr., another forced fumble for Peak, top 6 in program history now in forced fumbles, the highest graded player on the roster this season by Pro Football Focus, was once again the highest graded player again. And Neil, leaving the floor to you, my man. Antoine Peak Jr. ain't gonna be wearing Bearcat stripes for much longer, because that guy's gonna be playing in the league at this rate very soon.
Yeah, and you said it. And Antoine Peak, who else than Antoine Peak to have a huge, huge forced fumble for Cincinnati? That
It's
was
like when
what
FC
was
Cincinnati scores a goal, it's like either going to be assisted by Evander or scored by Evander. And when the Cincinnati Bearcats force a turnover, it's almost always involving Antoine Peak Jr.
And all I'm saying is if you're running with a football near Antoine Peak, put it in your opposite hand because he's going to try to punch it out.
Two hands.
Keep it high and tight.
Maybe just go
Two
down.
hands, keep it high and tight. But I mean, it was funny because we asked Antoine post game about that play, and he said, "Not gonna lie, I wasn't even the one who hit it out." He said, it "Sounded like Jonathan Thompson was the guy who got it out there on that play, and he just heard ball, 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 and then he fell on it. And next thing you know, he said, I saw Jalen Daniels without the ball, and I was like, oh, there it is." So that was a game saving stop, Russ,
Yep.
to say the least, because Kansas was going to go down and score there for if that fumble doesn't happen. And arguably in a back and forth battle, everybody kind of knew this game was going to come down to whoever had the ball last. And that was Cincinnati in this instinct. But Russ, when we want to talk about this game, Brendan Sorsby, masterclass of a performance, right? Arguably his best game as a Bearcat, even not if of his career. 29 for 43, 388 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and he also had 52 yards on the ground with his legs as well. But the difference maker for me, Russ, was look how calm and poised that team was when they walked out for that 2-minute drill, right? In week 1. But when they took the field for that final drive here on Saturday versus Kansas in a game which there was 1,200 total yards of offense put on display, when teams needed the most,
The most
Scott
in a game in college football this season, Neil.
Satterfield and Brendan Sorsby both told reporters after the game. Yeah. And they both told us that they felt very confident that they were going to go down and win that game. And you got to give credit to where credit's due. I mean, I was talking to Cyrus Allen earlier this week, or early heading into the Kansas matchup, and he even told me, he said, "Hey, I like being the villain in this matchup for one," which talk your talk, Cyrus, because if you're going into a game saying you like being the villain, then go up for 11 catches, 135 yards, and 2 touchdowns, talk your trash and back it up. Good. I respect that. But on top of it, he also made a really interesting note to me, Russ, was he praised the leadership that Gavin Gerhardt gives this team. And it started with him on Saturday on that final drive. I mean, a 6-year guy who's been through it all. He's seen it all in his college football career. That's the guy you want under center in a 2-minute drill with the game on the line. And Cincinnati was able to get the job done. And Russ, we've seen it all. We've seen visor sat. We've seen ball cap sat. But now we got backwards hat sat celebrating with this team. Man, it was just great. I mentioned it last week on the show heading into that matchup. This one was going to have some heavy indications for Scott. Losing his good longtime friend in Sean Clark, you could see how much this win on Saturday not only meant for this program, but for him personally in a time where he needed to kind of pick me up after dealing with the tragic loss of a longtime friend.
What a day. What a day for the program. 37-34 win. I mean, 388 yards through the air, another 215 on the ground. Shout out to Evan Pryor posting his best performance of the season so far, not only statistically in the raw data, but he was one of the top 5 graded players on the offense as well for the first time this season, harkening back to the impact he had last year with 6 totes for 90 yards, averaged 15 yards per carry, had 4.1 yards per carry out of Tawi Walker. And the 18 totes there for 73 yards and his 2 touchdowns. And overall, Neil, just stellar execution. Even with the lacking pass blocking out of the Cincinnati Bearcats, DeAndre Buford was rough, to say the least, in this game. He posted a 32 overall grade. And Buford was 19th out of 19 graded players in this game. Did play all 88 snaps, and we'll see if that competition between him and Ethan Green maybe gets extended, and maybe we see some action from Ethan Green this week, given how poorly Buford has played. And it's just a continuation, Neil, of what he's done his entire year his entire time at UC. He's got a 43.4 PFF grade this year, 55 last year, 47.7 his first year, and 57 in 2022 at Kentucky. I don't think DeAndre Buford's a power conference right tackle. I don't see it. There has been no indication in his entire time in the power conference level that he is capable of playing good football as a starter in this level of play.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what adjustments get made there heading into an Iowa State team here on Saturday. But Russ, before we talk about the offensive line heading into Iowa State, which we'll talk probably more heading into this week, going back to the Kansas game, this was huge for Cincinnati in all phases of the game because they went on the road and got a win in a hostile environment, but they did so without their best defensive star in Dante Corleone. It's worth
shout
noting
out
we
the
haven't talked
backups,
about
man.
it yet.
Kamari Burns and Isaiah Rogers, stellar for what they
And
stellar
Isaiah Rogers
performances
being
for
a
what they got
freshman.
asked to do.
And Isaiah Rogers being a true freshman played significant snaps up front for Cincinnati this past weekend. Kamari Burns as well, but
You're breaking up,
noting
Neil.
that
I can't
they
really hear you,
were
man.
able to get this job done without Dante, the ballsy kind of attitude for Cincinnati, right? Without their best star, they put their backs on the wall and was able to get a win. Now, Corleone is expected to be back versus Iowa State, but worth noting, to get a win like that on the road without Dante was huge.
I think we got you back. It's connection's a little rough here this morning for us on the recording dial. Sorry about the issues, people. We'll try to work through them here as we get ready for a break, and then we'll touch on the Iowa State game as well. All that coming up, and to echo Neil's point there, Isaiah Rogers, 28 snaps with a 67.6 overall grade. That is pretty good stuff for Rogers, who had played 12 and 34 snaps in the previous two games combined. So good stuff from Rogers to fill in for Dante Corleone. They withstood the Kansas rushing attack, didn't get destroyed there. Obviously got destroyed more so through the air, but were able to weather the storm and get through it in that sense. We'll get to a quick break here and touch on the betting line against ISU and some hoops additions before we bounce out of here on this episode of Bearcat Blitz. Launching the back half of the show here, I'm your host, Russ Eltman of Cincinnati Bearcats on SI, and he's my co-host, Neil Meyer of the FrontOfficeNews.com. Neil, Cincinnati now favored to beat the 14th ranked Iowa State Cyclones, the undefeated 5-0 Cyclones, heading to Nippert Stadium as underdogs now after opening as 3.5-point favorites. The betting public did not agree with what Vegas saw this matchup to be on Saturday night into Sunday morning. They heavily bet the Bearcats, and now UC is a definitive favorite in this game up against a ranked opponent. Neil, I mean, they haven't been a favorite against a ranked team since what, 2022? The middle portion of the 2022 season, going up against an AAC opponent?
Yeah, and the reason that betting line spread moved so much, Russ, was not sure if you saw it. Iowa State's going to be without their best defensive back, Jeremiah Cooper, for the rest of the year. It was announced yesterday, last night.
That's not good, but that's not going to move a spread 4.5 points. Maybe a half point for a defensive back, but the only thing moving spreads for more than a point or two is quarterbacks. So this to me was clearly heavy. I mean, if you look at the betting numbers too, a lot of the money is on the Bearcats. So there's been a heavy steam on the Bearcats, and it wasn't just that injury news. But yeah, I did see that. That is a key issue for the Cyclones. A little bit of an issue there getting Neil on the line. It's okay. All good. We'll get him good to go for the preview show on Thursday. Once again, though, big line movement for Cincinnati in their matchup against Iowa State, and people believing in the Bearcats. That's telling me. Favored against a ranked opponent. It's got to be for the first time. It's definitely for the first time in the Scott Satterfield era, then at least for the first time since 2022. And before, a couple more things to note here before we close out the show. We have a kickoff time, as mentioned earlier in the episode, for the UCF matchup on Saturday, October 11th at noon Eastern, airing on FS1. So we got a game time and a channel time for people not able to attend the action at Nippert Stadium. Cincinnati obviously carrying a little bit of a winning streak, not only in this season, but off the all-time series against UCF into this matchup. 19-13 win last year. Obviously, it was kind of the big Jake Golday breakout game in that contest. And Cincinnati obviously looking to score a little bit more than 19 points this time around and keep that offense cooking on what has been a very, very solid start offensively, dating back to the issues with the Nebraska game and cleaning those up ensuingly. And then final nugget here before we close out the show. The Cincinnati Bearcats basketball team has added a new staff member. I don't believe it's going to be a bench role. Those are already all cleared up and ready to roll. But Kelly Peters joining the program as a special assistant to the head coach in what looks like an admin role on the staff. He's got extensive experience in the National Basketball Association coaching and scouting ranks. Brings a precious, most recently was part of the USA Basketball FIBA Americas team staff, was an advanced scout with the 76ers as well from 2020 to 2023. Also was the assistant coach for the Santa Cruz Warriors in the G League after a 3-year stint as an advanced scout for the Golden State Warriors most recently over the past decade. So quote here from Wes Miller after the hiring, quote, Kelly brings a wealth of experience and perspective from almost a decade in the NBA with multiple organizations. We're glad to have him join the staff as we continue our preparation for the season, end quote. And we are about, roughly 35 days away, people, from tipping off the 2025-26 Cincinnati Bearcats basketball season. Can't wait to get into all that. Can't wait to see the new look team at practice, the new look team on the floor, see how these roles play out. It's completely, basically brand new, except for Day Thomas, who will assuredly be a part of the rotation. Other than that, it's going to be a brand new rotation, brand new talents for Wes Miller and his staff to work with this fall. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Eltman. This has been Bearcat Blitz presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. We'll get to one more note on FanDuel Sportsbook. Where do the Cincinnati Bearcats odds sit right now after beating the Kansas Jayhawks for that coveted Big 12 title? They had to have gone down. You got to tell me they fell from 30-1, and they have. They've gone from 30-1, folks, down to 16-1 to win the Big 12. That makes them the 7th betting favorite on the board. Still got a ways to go to catch up to Texas Tech at plus 180, though. That's a wildly short number for a conference like this to have a favorite at plus 180. We'll see how it all plays out. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Eltman. This has been Bearcat Blitz presented by FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. Talk to you later in the week, everybody.
6, Ritter to the end zone, looking for Pierce. Did he hang on? Yes. Touchdown. Back as I've been around. Here he goes again. Busts free. Jerome Ford down the sideline. Foot race. House call. Touchdown. 79 yards. Big one in the Beach Bowl. This is a big one, too.